All right, we're just gonna start this part of the program. This is just an added treat because we're gonna get to the real program is the training. You know, but these brothers came all the way from everywhere and we just want them to get their opinion on some things. First, I would like to introduce with the red hat from Detroit, Brother Will C. You know, from a very progressive hip hop group out of Detroit. Will C, acknowledge yourself, man.
Peace, 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 peace. Very glad to be here. How's everybody doing?
All right.
Good, good.
Next to Will C, we got Zero Prophet, a Puerto Rican. Afro Puerto Rican at that. You know what I'm saying? Brother Zero Prophet is with a progressive hip hop group called the Vandals. You know, and he has did a lot of recording with KRS-One, and he's here to offer his, I guess, hip hop expertise and activism. Shout out to Brother Zero Prophet.
All right.
And next to me, the man, the gorilla, the brother from Virginia, that's all I'm gonna say. And this is my man and brother, Steve Biko Thomas, who wrote the theme song of Let's Organize the Hood.
All right.
Solidarity. Solidarity, everyone. 1, 2, 1, 2.
You got to pick it up and keep it up.
1, 2. Okay. Solidarity, everyone. Okay. Yeah, my name is Steve Biko. I'm from Virginia, and of course it's an honor to be here. I've been looking forward to this event for several months now, and I can't express to you all the gratitude that I have and the honor that I am feeling and experiencing to be in you all's presence today. Our subject matter is going to be hip-hop activism and black social change. For me personally, I tell people all the time, obviously, I've been through just about everything that unfortunately is typically what young black males experience nowadays in their American experience. I've spent several years incarcerated. I've done more time in solitary confinement than I stopped counting a long time ago, you know what I'm saying? So, I used to live a lifestyle that what we're trying to confront, the lifestyle of those individuals whom we're trying to organize, galvanize, and mobilize, so to speak. I was on the streets doing anything I could possibly do to bring myself some sort of gratification. As a result, obviously, of systematic oppression. At the time, I didn't see it that way. Brother Rod said something to me just last night. When we're trying to encourage the youth specifically to try to understand the necessity for a revolutionary gang truce and things of this nature. He told me last night, he said it's important to remind them to not focus on the guilt that they may experience as their political education is cultivated and enhanced, because as the brother broke down to me, we were set up, and this whole system was set up to be just the way it is a long time ago, So sometimes I still struggle with the guilt of the lifestyle that I led during my youth, and the self-destructive element that I was in my own immediate community, So through my music, through hip-hop, which I use as a tool for activism, it's my way of giving back to my community, of saying those things and musically, culturally, that I know need to be said. And for me, it's my way of trying to, reconcile with how destructive that I did, the destructive way of life in which I led, and the way in which the destruction that I brought upon my own community. So, again, I'm very proud to be here. Very proud that these brothers and sisters of the Black Fraternity Federation reached out to me and asked me to participate, because this is also part of my continued personal reconciliation process, giving back to the community for which I took for so long. So again, I'm honored to be here, brother. Ancestors.
Right.
For many years, and just about the last 40 years, you know, one of the biggest things that the movement has ignored, you know, and not since the Black Panther Party, were those involved in gangs, you know, and, you know, we're not, you know, they are part of us, and we are part of them. You know, these are our youth. You know, I was involved in the gang, you know, and the sad thing about that is I got involved after the Panthers were vamped on in LA because I felt a deep void in the community, and I saw a deep void in the community, and I was angry. You know, that was the main thing. I was angry, you know, because it's like nobody did anything, you know, and, you know, I took it out in the streets, you know what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is that I still had a political consciousness. You know, there were certain things I did not do, you know, and then other brothers reached out to me when I got about 17 and 18, and these brothers were part of RAM. You know, they saw I was a good organizer, and they wanted to use me, you know, for their organization. And when I say use me, that's basically what they did, because they had me doing things that none of them on the top wouldn't do. And I hate to say that, but it was like, you know, well, let's use, you know, the ghetto brothers. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I didn't realize then, but I found out real quick, you know, because when you come from the streets, that there was some class snobbery going on. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, just because somebody is black and call themselves radical don't necessarily mean that they're real. You know what I'm saying? And that they're true. And I can say this now, you know, because I was part of that. Matter of fact, I was the youngest organizer that RAM, the Revolutionary Action Movement, had. And I started Young African Nation, you know. And we're going to be real here today, you know, because, you know, after that experience, I began to reanalyze a lot of things, and that everything black, you know, don't fit the crack. You know what I'm saying? Like everything black is not, just because it's black don't make it right. You know what I'm saying? You know, like you have to have some principles. You know, you have to have some morality. And you have to love the people that are on the bottom. And that is what is missing so much in a lot of the movements today. That there is no love for the people on the bottom. And in this day and age, that's almost the majority of us. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's almost the majority of us. So when we look at that today, you know, in building, and when we talk about building the movement, and when we talk about hip-hop activism and black social change, we got to realize that hip-hop came from those at the bottom, basically. You know, hip-hop came as a voice for the voiceless, you know, and it came strong in a revolutionary voice. But just like everything in America, you know, the powers that be have tried to find a way to co-opt that voice, you know, and with no revolutionary leadership to guide many of these brothers, you know, they go for the almighty dollar and the trinkets that the record companies say, this is what you can have, you know, but that also is a scam, and it's it really is part of the continued counterinsurgency in our community. You know, now, you know, I'm going to be real with you guys, and I'm going to hand it over for, you know, to some of these other brothers, you know, because they got a lot to say. But when the Black Panther Party in LA, you know, I started working with them when I was 10 years old. They're selling their paper, you know, and by the time I was, by the time I was 14, they had gotten vamped on in LA. But I remember, you know, I used to go pick up papers in the morning, and, you know, they would be serving us breakfast and things like that. And those were the only brothers that took time with us ghetto youth during that period, those brothers and sisters. And I used to like going there because the sisters were beautiful and they had naturals, you know, and I was like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were just some beautiful sisters, but they carried themselves with a pride and dignity that you didn't see so often, especially coming from the hood. And I remember Al Prentice Bunchy Carter speaking one day in the Panther headquarters at a meeting. And I was just a little kid, but I never forgot what he said. He was talking to the older comrades. And Al, Bunchy said, you know what? The only thing that makes the white man brave is the gun. And that always stuck with me. And then Bunchy went on, because I didn't understand all what he was saying, but he went on to say that, that's how they conquered Asia. You know what I'm saying? That's how they conquered Africa. But without that gun, and he quoted something from Malcolm, it's even Steven. You think what I'm saying? But, we, in the Black Panther Party, we gonna have some guns too. You know what I'm saying? And that always stuck with me because I ain't never saw a young brother talk like that and that directly, and that gave me a sense of pride, right then and there. So at that moment, I fell in love with the Black Panther Party. I fell in love with Bunchy because this brother was real. A lot of people don't know that Bunchy had 5,000 soldiers, that were part of the Slauson Bloods, and that again tells you the power of ghetto youth. You know what I'm saying? This was before hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But 5,000 Bloods, he had more soldiers than the LAPD and the LA County Sheriff's Department combined. He had over 5,000 soldiers. And not just soldiers, but there were those that were underground who, were supporters, or had houses that safe houses. You know what I'm saying? So, don't disregard our ghetto youth. Malcolm, came from, from the hood. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm experienced things, that all of us up here experience. So, we here today is just trying to keep it real, and, this is just an added treat for us, but after this section is over, we're going to get into training. And I just want everybody to know that we're going to get into training those that are here. We're not worried about the numbers who's here because we want sincere and committed people, that are willing to work for us. And before I hand the mic over, there are some pamphlets here that we got for those who want to, who after all this is over, who may want to get involved. We do have a Let's Organize the Hood, Revolutionary Community Organizers Manual. This will only go for those who are sincere about working with us in Black Autonomy Federation and want to organize chapters and start within their communities. We also got for a small donation, whatever you can give, but free to those who want to join Black Autonomy Federation, the manual of Let's Organize the Hood, Organizing Revolutionary Gang Troops in your city. And this is about organizing gang youth. So those are some of the things. And, we hope some of you really get involved and take this seriously because, as Brother Lorenzo said, we are in crisis right now. And we are in crisis mode. But, getting back to the point that now, more than any other time, there is a real class divide in our communities. And at the same time, they were vamping on the Panthers. And at the same time, they were arresting so many brothers, after the vamping on the Panthers, especially gang members in LA. And the Crash program started this program in LA, and that spread it all over the nation. That any people that showed any leadership, any potential leadership in the hood, these brothers and sisters too were being arrested, and not even charged, but just the fact that they were arrested, will keep them further marginalized because they had a record of an arrest, whether they had a criminal record or not. And this was social control, and this social control started way before the Crash program. It started way before COINTELPRO. The social control started with the first laws that existed for Africans in this country. And that started with the slave codes, and the slave codes denied African male and women every right as a human being, but gave all rights to the slave owners as us being their property. you know. And after the slave codes, after the Civil War came, what they called the black codes, you know, right after the Civil War. And the black codes gave us that little thing called the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, you know, because, you know, they were trying to appease the New South that didn't no longer was thriving on slavery, but they was upset because they still were feared that the slaves would probably take revenge over there and wanted to keep them under some kind of social control and put them back in slavery if necessary. So they made that little amendment in the 13th Amendment that slavery will only exist under the degree of being incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? Of being incarcerated, you know. Then after that, they had the Jim Crow laws that came into after the Reconstruction period. And the Jim Crow was an unwritten segregation law, you know, that we couldn't exist in certain housing areas. And this is where the sundown laws came into effect. My grandfather and my father used to talk about that. Like in certain areas, you had to be out of town by sundown. From the north to the south. You could only go to town during certain hours, and mainly those domestic hours where domestics would come and work in certain neighborhoods as domestics, but at sundown, you better be out of town. Or you can get lynched and even killed. They even had a sign in Hawthorne, California, you know, that said that, you know, niggas be out of town by sundown or you will be killed, you know. And that just didn't happen in Hawthorne, California. You know, it still existed down south, but this was a northern thing. The sundown laws even existed in Canada. Matter of fact, in one province in Canada, the sundown laws didn't even go away till 1985. And everybody think how Canada's so wonderful. Eh? Everybody think Canada is so wonderful. Yeah, well, in places like Nova Scotia, you ask the black people there, you know, sundown laws stayed in effect till 1985. You know, but the reason why I say all this, and like Steve Biko was saying, is like many that are caught up into the gang lifestyle and still have a conscience, and when they get out, you know, they blame themselves. You know, but this has been a systematic social control mechanism and conditioning that, you know, they take jobs from us, you know, they keep us on the bottom, and every one of those laws, from the slave code to the Jim Crow laws, were about keeping us the permanent underclass and keeping our community, you know, under the control of white supremacy. You know, who's talking about that today? You know what I'm saying? But it didn't stop there. You know, the 1965, we got the Civil Rights Act. Okay, so they said, okay, well, blacks have been out here going on the wild. You know, they've been out here fighting. They've been out here burning down cities after cities. They had to do something. You know, we were on the verge of really a social revolution as the masses were in the streets. You know, so they gave the civil rights laws. A lot of people were happy. Oh, we got integration now. But what that really did was start to create a black middle class. You know, and with that creation of a black middle class came, you know, blacks could work in government, blacks can work in cities now. You know, they can live on certain parts of towns and didn't have to be out by sundown. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that segment became more and more cordial, you know, with the white ruling class. You know, and that was by design. You know, because they had the appearance of success. You know, and they would flash that up to the masses of us who didn't have that accessibility. But, you know, if you keep your head down, if you act right, this is what can happen to you. You can have that same success. And this is the game they've been running on all of us ever since. So this is where we at, you know. But it didn't stop there. 1994, you know, the Democratic president, some called him the first black president, Clinton. Clinton in 1994 came up with the crime bill. The crime bill. This was a crime bill that was like no other crime bill. This crime bill put 50 new categories of the death penalty, on the map in this bill. It put in mandatory sentencing, that anybody that was sentenced had to do the majority of their time. It put in the 3 strikes law, that if you were a felon through the social economic need, because that's what most felons are, if you got 3 felonies, you would do life in prison. Clinton did that, y'all's first black president. The good old Mr. Clinton from Arkansas, the Democrat. Who got caught doing crazy stuff with cigars. This is what Clinton did. And this is why we're in the situation we are today, because the mass incarceration that faces our community today came out of 1994 crime bill. So do you see what I'm saying here? Do you see how, that everything has been designed to keep social control of African people in this country from day one? And if we don't have the correct analysis, we don't know how to even move forward in this period. And, it's not our fault. This has been the game that's been played on us. And now we're reaping the effects of all that. And here comes Obama. Mr. Obama. You know what I'm saying? I don't even want to think about what's going to happen 10 years after he leaves office. Because right now, with the Homeland Security and all the things that are being changed and everything moving towards the right, I can't keep up with it no more. I'm even scared to cut on my computer thinking somebody's watching me some days. You know what I'm saying? I've been trying to get off Facebook, but my comrades keep pulling me on back. Because that is straight up state book. It's straight up state book. They fired a whole bunch of CIA agents when they invented Facebook. So, this is where we at, people. And I'm saying that, too, is that, this has always been a criminal nation. This nation has run by criminals. And they know the power of the gangs and black males and black females in our community that are poor. And that's why that this social control amongst the poor elements in our community, and they use the mass media to think that, to make you believe that all black males in the hood are drug dealers and criminals, and that, is a total propaganda campaign. And then it also plays on young black males' minds. Okay, well, they feel that, well, maybe that's the only thing I can do to get money. And in many cases, they created the social conditions where sometimes that's the only thing we can do to get money, because there ain't no jobs in the hood. But if we don't build mass movements to demand something, then we will never get it. So we have to be about, informing our youth and informing our community and building a black music movement for social change in this period. And if you guys want to, like this pamphlet goes into all in detail what I just mentioned, and also about all the organizing for this stuff. Inform my people. So I want to get somebody else to comment right now. And in terms of hip hop and the role it has played, in black social change, and how it can play in the future.
Peace, how y'all doing?
How you doing?
All right. I go by Will C, coming out of Detroit, Michigan. Excited to be here. Excited to really share Not as much theoretical stuff, but what we're doing, as Baba mentioned, in terms of with the conditions that's on the ground and the things that we're seeing and the problems that we see. I noticed that you made some may call it a Freudian slip or a synchronicity. You said that we need to get the community out there to build music for social change. And then you changed it to movement, but I'm gonna actually go back to that first one, you know what I'm saying, and talk about some of the things that we're doing in Detroit. Some of the brothers and sisters that I know, one of the issues that we've seen, which it's kind of been touched on, but it hasn't fully been touched on yet, is the appearance of what many people call black culture is really corporate culture. And what many people think of as black entertainment or black cultural products is really determined on a lot of different levels by corporations, multinational corporations, the messages that are put out. Many people think that these are just individuals making these medias and, oh, they have a connection or they have a reflection. But the reality is that these are corporate products just like McDonald's, Pepsi, Frito-Lay, or anything else is. And so people think that they're getting into their own culture, they're getting in and they're being down with their culture while they're just consuming prepackaged corporate products. And so in Detroit, one of the things we do is we really go heavy on the media analysis. We really go heavy on deciphering and letting people know what's what. And we are part of a movement that we're developing called 21st Century Hip Hop. We're developing this thing called 21st Century Hip Hop, and we would love to figure out how to engage, you know what I'm saying, with BAF and wherever people are, because it's what people need. We need that music that is going to stand for social justice. 20th century hip hop comes out of the divides of the corporations. It comes because people say, well, I can't get my voice out there, I can't get this money unless I get with the corporations. There was this great documentary on hip hop in which it showed a line of young black men in line for a talent audition. They went out to the parking lot and they were like, spit a verse, and they were spitting all this knowledge and spitting all this different stuff. And then when they went into the auditions, they talked about, you know, how many people they were gonna shoot up and how many B's and how many H's and different things like that. And so our community, the knowledge that is in these children, the knowledge that is in these young people, the messages that they could be put out there is not getting promoted. We're not even getting the whole picture of who our own young people are because they're filling through that filter of what the corporations are telling them they need to be to sell that. And then the young people don't even know that. The younger people, they think that that's just who these people are. You see what I'm saying? That's 20th century hip hop. That's 20th century hip hop, which has gone into the corporations. 21st century hip hop comes from entrepreneurship. It comes from going community to community and knowing that there's a hunger in our community for the truth. I was talking with the brother in the back, and he was talking about how kids light up, their eyes light up when they hear that truth. You know what I'm saying? Whether you tell them about the truth of Jesus or the truth of their ancestry or the truth, you know what I'm saying? But right now the corporations are telling us largely because their money is coming off of selling these profits to white people. That's another thing that people don't know, is that most black culture, the profit making comes from selling it to white people, which is why there's such a heavy trade in selling black stereotypes. You see what I'm saying? But if we develop these goods and if we develop these things for our own community, we have to have faith and we have to apply that we're going to create this economics so that people can sell it, that there will be this quote-unquote market, that our people do want this truth. You see what I'm saying? And so one of the things I work with the 5E, the 5 Elements Gallery, contemporary hip-hop culture, we're talking about in Detroit, we're making social consciousness cool. You know what I'm saying? Where people can listen to the radio and be like, yo man, these cats is whack. These cats is spitting self-destruction. These cats is lying on the mic. You know what I'm saying? It's cool to spit something that's real. You see what I'm saying? We're doing that work so that not just me, but you know, dozens of young people, they have that thing in their mind. So when they hear these things that's presented to them, it's not even about an ideology, but it's just like, man, that's some BS. You know what I'm saying? This real thing is cool. You see what I'm saying? So we're developing MCs that come, we're developing audiences that come. One of the things that's heavy on the back of this flyer, I got the flyers over there on our little table, is the foundation. It's a weekly hip hop night that celebrates women in hip hop. So much misogyny is being viewed as normal. So many people think that once they get a mic, you know what I'm saying, they just gotta degrade sisters and that's what rapping is. But the foundation has developed to a certain, at first we had to come heavy. People would get on the mic and just spit the same things they were used to spitting. The facilitators and hosts would be like, no, no, no. That's not what we're doing here. We have these principles. But now, the MCs, the B-boys, they regulated themselves. You see what I'm saying? Now it's like somebody new comes to the space, be like, yo, 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 hold up now. You know what I'm saying? The whole space gets in an uproar because that has been developed in our space. Those principles have been executed in our space. So we really are thinking about, you know, you mentioned, Baba mentioned that from then to now, there's a lot of new challenges. Some victories, but a lot of new challenges. One of those challenges is how pop culture is affecting our culture. How corporate culture is affecting our culture. Before, we weren't as plugged in, you know what I'm saying? We weren't as susceptible to these things that were not coming from us, but we are the vehicle. Just like you mentioned, the politicians are the vehicles for the political programming. These rappers, which I dare call, even if they're gangsters, even if they're from the hood, I dare call them Uncle Toms because they are plugging people into the corporate culture. They are corporate salesmen for vodka and watches and cars. They made a whole song where they just sell different Italian brand names. That's all they said. And the whole song, what? And they called it black culture. You know, we had the nerve to call that black culture. You know? So we literally, one of my partners is working with an African shoe designer, you know what I'm saying? And he's throwing in, you know what I'm saying? He's throwing in the shoe designer in this rap. I got on right now a Newark leather belt made from some comrades in Detroit. I'm working on a song where I'm gonna throw in a little snap about the Newark leather, you know what I'm saying? It's like we can promote commercialism, we can promote commercial exchange, but we have to be smart and strategic about whose commercial exchange are we promoting. You see what I'm saying? I'm not gonna sit here and promote some Italian and German and Microsoft and what Jay-Z did, Samsung, and you know what I'm saying? That's what they promote. That's what they plug in the young people into. We also work heavy on plugging these artists into the struggle. You know what I'm saying? My album, The Basics, is full of anthems, you know what I'm saying, going into hip hop, Take the Houses Back, Water Power, Organic Activist, which goes in on food, you know what I'm saying, developing the skills of MCs so that it's hard to flow on a topic. A lot of MCs don't even have the skills to flow on a topic. You know what I'm saying? We gotta develop those skills so that if somebody's serious approach to them, they're not just gonna be like, well, and then just go back and talk some nonsense. They gotta develop the intellectual skills to even do 8 bars or 16 bars and have it be of value so that the people in the struggle will even wanna listen to it and not be like, you know what, But it's a mix, because the youth culture is very strong and a lot of the lecturing and a lot of the top-down stuff is not gonna fly. Right. You know what I'm saying? So we need to speak in that culture and let that culture be what it is. You know? Lastly, coming to wrap it up, I heard you was talking about the Sundown Town. We got one in Detroit, Michigan. I work with the youth organization YEA, the Young Educators Alliance, which works with high school students, college students, and young working class people that, you know what I'm saying, they just working. But they, you know, quote unquote, college age. We bring all three together into the same group. We recently were down in Dearborn Heights for a demonstration for Renisha McBride, young woman who got shot in the face and killed after she got in a car accident and was going to ask for help. You know what I'm saying? We brought our youth to the, you know what I'm saying, to that protest. They got so much footage. Most of the footage from that actual protest is the young people that we brought. They were down there making the posters, the remnants of this sundown town. You know, they might not have had nothing on the book, but it took literally weeks for that dude to even be arrested. You know what I'm saying? Even, it took pressure to even make this guy become charged. You know what I'm saying? And so we're working with these young people. They're addressing issues of gentrification, issues of cuts to cash assistance, the Detroit incinerator. I got to do a shout out for environmental justice because, like I was talking with my brother in the back, our people are under such a chemical attack that we have asthma, we have sickness, we have diabetes, we have all these things and think that that's normal. You know what I'm saying? When we haven't taken the time to break down the chemical attack that our community is under and do something about the community attack. About this chemical and environmental attack. So that's one more facet, you know what I'm saying, which we have to make sure we know, because if we too sick to come to a meeting and you know what I'm saying, we can't go outside because the pollution is too bad and I can't go outside today, it stinks too much, I can't, I don't got enough energy. Half the people that would be aligned with us ain't got enough energy to come on out, you know what I'm saying, the grandmamas and the babas are too sick and too, you know what I'm saying, we don't even got the energy, to get on out and take a stand because of the things that we're consuming and because of the chemicals that are in our environment. So half the soldiers, you know what I'm saying, are halfway recuperating, and ain't even got the energy to the fight. So my man was talking about the chakras and the alkaline water and the meditation and the things that we got to do. If we have a doctor, we don't tell our doctor we do these things, but we do these things because we know that the doctor may or may not keep us alive. Shoot, they might not even do that, but you know what I'm saying? But the doctor ain't gonna give us the things that's gonna provide us health.
That's right.
We need spaces like this and we need to talk and exchange. Yo, you know about these herbs, you know about the echinacea, you know what I'm saying? You tell a doctor that, they're like, yo, what? That contradicts you know what I'm saying? But that might be the stuff that helps get you from just dragging along to having a little pep in your step. And I know because I've been in the hospital, I have kidney failure, I go to dialysis, I've been in and out of the hospital, you know what I'm saying? But rather, when I look around and I see the people that go to dialysis with me, you know what I'm saying, they're not full-time organizers. I go to dialysis, get off the machine, get back on the email and head right back to the streets. Because I know about the acupuncture, I got people that get Reiki with me, I got the herbs, I got these different things, so I'm not just staying alive, which too many of our people are at this moment. You know what I'm saying? In the 21st century, too many of our people are just staying alive. So we need to get that African wisdom to our people about this natural world, which can help us get the strength in this fight that we need. You know what I'm saying? Because these chemicals and stuff, they may or may not keep us alive, you know what I'm saying? But we're gonna need all the strength that we can. We're gonna need that hip hop strength, that cultural strength, that health strength. So that's my little report back from Detroit City to Motor City, Motown. Much love, thanks. My first time being in Memphis, but I love coming down south, so I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, greetings. My name is Knox Crawford from New York City, from the Bronx and Harlem.
All right.
This year, what we know as hip-hop culture, the hip-hop nation is 40 years old. So that's a while. What we don't think about today is that hip-hop as a culture, as a nation, comes at a certain time when grassroots and dirt roots movements and organizations were being decimated through COINTELPRO, through imprisonment, through assassination. It comes during a time where the inner city was figuring out, they had a program that they called spatial deconcentration, where they tried to remove Black and Puerto Rican folks who could possibly create dissent and uprisings in the ghetto would be scattered all over the United States. And the idea was that we couldn't have a recreation of the riots, so-called riots, the uprisings that were happening in the ghetto, in the hood, in the 1960s. So hip-hop also comes along at a time when there was a thing called white flight from the inner city, from the hood. There was a thing happening where landlords, white landlords, were burning out their own buildings to collect insurance, and people were talking about how the Bronx is burning. So basically, when we look at the beginnings of hip-hop, you're seeing a process of Black autonomy. Basically, the folks in the hood had nothing, In Charlotte Street, which is one of the main streets in the South Bronx, which is the birthplace of hip hop, Charlotte Street was written off the map, the New York City map, as if it didn't exist anymore. The police stopped coming through that area, so it was left to drug dealers, but it was also left to people who wanted to squat. It was also left to people who wanted to turn garbage lots into community gardens. It was also left to young people who decided that they were going to plug into lampposts and they were going to have block parties in the street. You know, it was also left to young people who decided that the private property was now going to be galleries and museums, which is graffiti or vandalism when it's illegal, which is most times. But it was also left to young people who decided, okay, another thing that was going on is they were moving the arts programs in the schools. So black kids were no longer being taught how to play an instrument, how to dance, how to sing, anything. So what was happening was cats were like, okay, well, we're going to get out on the street and we're going to teach ourselves. And we're going to have, street ballet, which people call breaking, or b-boy, b-girling. There was also a process of people saying, okay, we don't have these things, we don't know how to sing anymore, we're not taught how to sing anymore, so we'll do something new, and we'll call it rapping, which is basically talking melodically. And so the point being that there was this process of black folks saying, you know what, we're going to do for self. We're going to be autonomous, we're going to control our communities. And for a short period of time, the South Bronx was an autonomous community. The police were not going in there. The police were not traveling through the South Bronx because they were at risk of what could happen to them. Folks in the squats, folks in these abandoned buildings would throw things out at the police when they came by. The police were afraid to go into the South Bronx. This is what we see in the 1970s. But by late 1970s, well, actually backtracking, 1977, there was a blackout in New York City. It's interesting because one of the DJs from back then, DJ Disco Wiz, he says that the blackout was the spark in the hip hop revolution because the next day all the brothers had electronic equipment. So that's when you had all these DJs and all these microphones for the MCs. But the interesting thing is that shortly after 1977, you have the corporations swooping down. Next thing you know, you have MCs being signed to corporate labels. You have films being made by Hollywood about the hip-hop experience. So you have a process where people were doing it for self, and people weren't making money. Maybe you made your little mixtape, and sometimes you gave it away, sometimes you sold it for a few dollars if people really loved what you were doing. And that's how you ate. But most times, the way you ate was that you were doing something dope, and people were like, yo, you hungry? I got some food for you. I got a place for you to stay. If you were touring, basically, you were sleeping on somebody's sofa, and some kid who wanted to hear your music booked your show, just because they wanted you in their town. That's how hip-hop lived before the early 1980s. By the early 1980s, it's a corporate product. By the early 1980s, it's this totally consumer, co-opted, colonized product. So, it's funny, I think the MC Mos Def said that, whatever is going on in the black community is what's going on in hip-hop. The late political prisoner, Albert Neil Washington, said that black is a political condition. So basically what we're seeing, what we're seeing in hip-hop is a process of colonization, which is a process that's been going on in the black community for decades. Some might say hundreds of years. And so, that's a whole other, bag. But the point being that we are seeing our cultures being co-opted, being turned into products, being corporatized. So, at the end of the day, the only way we really achieve a degree of autonomy in hip-hop and in our cultures and in our lives is by stepping out of that cipher, stepping out of that matrix. So the idea being, we have to get back to the streets. Totally, and we also have to stop thinking of our creations as a product to be bought and sold. And I think that's what's lacking a lot of times when we're dealing with the so-called underground movement. We are still approaching it through the same cipher that the corporations approach it. So we're still thinking, okay, well, we can't get sold, so we gotta figure out ways to sell our shit, you know? But at the end of the day, what we really need to do is figure out ways for people to want our shit on the street. For the hood to actually be bumping our shit because it's giving them something. That's right. You know, and that I think is what's lacking. You know, it's dope to see a lot of folks here. It's interesting because we got brothers from Detroit, you know, we got brothers from Chicago, sister from Denver, sister from Jersey, you know, others. And I feel like the people here have to be willing to go out into the hood, you know, and become the emissaries. You know, or we call them the evangelists, not the evangelists. You know, for this new movement that brings back this sensibility of autonomy, this sensibility of doing for self. You know, I was reading a book by Nelson George, which is called The Death of Rhythm and Blues, and he was talking about how for centuries, black music was family music. The idea being that, you know, the 80-year-old grandmother was listening to it, and the 5-year-old great-grandchild was listening to the same music. And music brought people together. What's interesting with hip-hop is because it's become this product to be sold, then the corporations decide, okay, well, we have to create this product that we are selling to kids. And so when you reach a certain age, you know, maybe it's 21, maybe it's 31, I don't know what it is, but when you reach a certain age, you're no longer down with that music. It's no longer family music, it's no longer black music, and it's not a question of the subject matter, it's just a question of what you can sell to a certain demographic. So what we have happening now is that, you know, the kids in the hood are doing what they do, and then the adults are like, oh, you know, oh, that's terrible, that's gangster rap, you know, pull up your pants, you know, pull down your hoodie, you know, and all this other stuff. But we're not realizing that hip-hop is us. It's a mirror image of us. And if the youth is not uprising, if the youth is not politicized, if the youth is not organized, if the youth is not radical, if the youth is not militant, it's because right now they are a mirror image of what is happening in the black community. That's it. So that's what's lacking, and that's what's lacking with hip-hop. For myself, the folks I run with in New York City, you know, we've tried to perceive hip-hop as not only a tool, but also a weapon. But the point of the matter is that one of the things I've experienced with other folks who consider themselves, you know, anarchists of color, or, you know, autonomous people of color, at least in New York City, is that a lot of those folks came from a different environment, which is not the hood. And so, in many cases, they fear the hood. They fear folks from the hood. And, you know, the only reason we don't call them gentrifiers is because they're people of color. You know, but the reality is, you know, they're disconnected from the hood. Right. And, you know, there's no way you're going to build anything with the hood when you fear the hood. And I would say today, hip-hop as an entity fears the hood. You know, and hip-hop as an entity is not trying to sell anything to the hood. It's not trying to give anything to the hood. It's not trying to bless the hood with anything, because the perception is that the hood has nothing to offer it. Right. You know, who has something to offer it? The corporations. You know, but I don't see, or I see very little attempt to create a cipher that exists outside the corporate structure. I see very little folks, you know, whether we be MCs, you know, whether we be DJs, whether we be, you know, hip-hop heads, saying, okay, well, let's create an infrastructure that does not want to get into bed with the enemy. You know, and I think that that's what's lacking. That's what's lacking for us right now, and I think that that's what we have to focus on. I would like to see everybody in this room, since people are from different places, saying, you know what, I'm going to be that evangelist, I'm going to be that emissary who gets into the hood and just raps with folks. You know, I was listening to a speech by A$AP Brown, which was from like 1970 recently, and it was interesting because, you know, he's on the mic and he says, you know, brother, you need a job? I got a job for you in the Black Panther Party. So I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, well, you know, what could I legitimately say to a brother now? You know, very little. You know, so it's like, okay, brother, you need a job? There's a non-profit organization, you know, that's ready to save you. you know, and they'll give you a paycheck. You know, and I think that right now we're all on a grind, we're all on a hustle. But we ain't hustling for the revolution. We're hustling to survive. And I think we also have to sort of reshape the wording of what we do. When we as black folks think of survival, we think of surviving the elements that are fucking us up. But unfortunately, there are folks right now, white folks in the South, who call themselves patriots. When they think of survival, they think of training each other, how to use weapons, and how to survive and win when this race war, which will happen, is going to happen. And you know, my disappointment is that I see the potential for hip hop as a culture and as a nation. And because this disconnect exists between what we are as black folks, what we are as African descendants, and what we've become as this corporatized product to be bought and sold, we're getting nowhere. And the point being, because I don't want to go on too long, there's a lot to be done, but it starts in the streets.
Again, I'm Steve Biko from Virginia, and I just want to make a couple points real quick, and then we're going to have a question and answer session. So anyone can ask any question they may have for any of us up here as part of this panel today. If the subject is hip-hop activism and black social change, I want to make a point about this. This kind of speaks to what Zero initially began his presentation with and his statements with. You know, one of the objectives of the Black Autonomy Federation is to develop and cultivate a revolutionary gang truce, right? So when you talk about that time during the South Bronx, obviously, you know, hip-hop also came out of what was also a gang lifestyle, if I'm not mistaken. The Zulu Nation, Africa Bambaataa, they were part of, they went by other names prior to the advent of the Zulu Nation. And they were part of other street organizations prior to the advent of them becoming the Zulu Nation. So, you know, if the subject is hip-hop activism and black social change, we have a precedent just in the culture of hip-hop as to how to use it to initiate a revolutionary gang truce. The precedent was set in hip-hop's inception, from its very origin. That's how it began, right? There was a revolutionary gang truce, and what developed out of that became known as the culture of hip-hop. So those of us who were in attendance at this conference here this weekend, I cannot stress the importance of everyone's being present here. You know, this Black Youth and Hip Hop Active Community Organizing Conference. Because what we're doing, we talk about this being 40 years since this year marking the 40th year since the so-called creation of hip hop culture. This is hip hop coming full circle right now. Those of us who are on this panel, those of us who are artists, myself, Will C, Zero, this is hip hop coming full circle right now, 40 years later. 40 years later, trying to get it back to where it began and to where its original intentions was. And that was to initiate a revolutionary gang truce to bring forth some black social change. That's what it was all about in the beginning, and that's what we're trying to get it back to right now, because that's what it's supposed to be about. That's what it was always supposed to be about. I gotta speak to a couple things real quick before we start this question and answer session, though, because I think it's very important as part of this particular panel that a couple points be made, all right? Right now, what is really prevalent in certain academic circles is what has become known as hip-hop education. Right? Hip-hop ed. Right?
Hip-hop 101.
Yeah, that's what they call it. You know? And this has become an entire industry in and of itself. That is only benefiting the rich black upper classes and higher classes and of course, the interests that represent them. This is only enhancing and enriching those who are already rich, those who are already well off, the black upper middle classes. I'm talking about, and I'm going to try my best not to name any names here, right? I'm going to try my best not to name any names here. Because of the fact that, for the most part, I recognize them to be the shoe-shine, blue-looking Negroes that they are. They don't even deserve to be named oftentimes, right? And unless it's to hold them up as examples as to what we ought to strive not to be. All right? But I'm talking about college professors that are currently employed at Duke University. If you'll see this tape, they'll know what I'm talking about, right? New York University, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are college professors, university professors, who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year touring the nation, talking about what they providing to our youth is quote unquote hip hop education. But their work goes to reinforce the racist institutions that are oppressing us all. Their work goes to reinforce the racist institutions that are exploiting us all. That's not hip hop education. You understand what I'm saying? I will point towards the Black Autonomy Federation Community Organizers Manual real quick, because I want to make it clear as to why I'm here, right? The Black Autonomy Federation, let's organize the little black overview. Who are we? We are advocates for black revolution worldwide. That's number one. If the professors at Duke University is not giving that type of hip-hop education, then he ain't down with this program right here. You understand what I'm saying? And he don't want nobody else to be down with this program right here. Because that's going to cut into his paycheck. Number two, we are opposed to politicians as a path to social change. So therefore, I'm not making any appeals to the mayor to try to implement my program of so-called hip-hop ed in order to teach ABCs and 1, 2, 3s a little bit better to the children, right? So I came up with a rap that's going to teach you how to say your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and I'm going to call that hip-hop education. You can write me a $50,000 check for doing so, right? These are the people, these people are pulling scams and schemes such as these. Lucrative scams and schemes for themselves, but it's doing nothing for the benefit of the people in general, and they damn sure not giving back none of that money that they make off of these lucrative scams and schemes that they're running and calling hip-hop education. That's not hip-hop activism for the sake of black social change. Why? Well, here's why. Point number 4, we oppose capitalism and big business. We oppose capitalism and big business, right? So indeed, we as artists, we would like to be reimbursed at times for our art. I know for me personally, it's only to pay some bills and make some ends meet, right? But if you don't got it, I'm gonna give it to you. You see? Because that's how I see hip hop. That's how I see art in itself, in and of itself. If it was a blessing and a gift that is innate within me, then I know that I was bestowed with a creative talent that was meant to be shared. It's only because I live in a damn capitalist society that I have to try to seek some type of reimbursement for it, right? Because I should have to pay for water.
That's right.
But I have to. You see? Those artists out there nowadays, and again, I'm trying not to name names, right? But there's a lot of artists out there nowadays who are looked up as some of our most esteemed hip-hop activists. You know, some of our most admirable and honorable so-called conscious rappers. You understand what I'm saying? Do you see or hear any of them talking about a program like this? No. Not near one of them. Not near one of them. Because these artists, just like the mainstream professors and university and college professors who go under this hip-hop ed so-called movement, these artists, like them, are nothing but accommodationists and reformists at heart. At most, at the best. That's all that they are. Right? If you're not sitting on this panel, I might be talking about you. I'm just going to put it that way. Right? If you're not sitting at this panel, you're not meant for this particular conference, you might fall in that category, as far as I'm concerned. Right? Because your politics and your music, that is referred to as being conscious, so to speak, is reformist at best. You're looking for some, what they call for, we want some reforms within the prison system. We're seeking some reforms, right? We want reforms to the Medicaid system. You know, we want some reforms to the welfare system. Reform, right? If we know that the system is broken, and if we know that it was created to do just what it is doing, how the hell are you going to seek to reform it? Reform it to do what? To be a little bit more advantageous for you? But to topple it over, to do away with it, is going to be advantageous for everybody. You see? So if I work for my brother when I work for myself, then my objectives would be to help them with reforming it. I want to dismantle it. I want to dismantle it. I want to create another. Right? Something brand new. Something that I cannot expect for this particular system and the representatives of it to create, because their objective and their motivation is always going to be to profit. So even in their reforms, they're going to make sure they don't cut themselves out of so much profit, if any at all. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't really want to take that too personally in terms of, because maybe if you couldn't make it, then you couldn't make it. All right? But what I do say is, if you're not advocating for a message of black revolution worldwide, then obviously, and from my perspective, you're more of a reformist than you are a revolutionary. I want to say this. There appears to me to be, out of this hip-hop education movement that is being propagated as hip-hop activism, there appears to me to be not just black individuals who are profiting from it personally, but once again, many corporations are profiting from it as well. And this is why it makes it so dangerous. This is why it makes it nothing but a reinforcement of the system as it is already in place. And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with us using and developing and cultivating programs that will enhance the educations of our youth at whatever level that they may be. There's nothing wrong with using music to do that purpose, right? But if it doesn't also come with a national perspective as to how the implications of this particular system and the way in which things are right now, if it doesn't come with a national perspective, if not an international perspective, of how hip-hop is being used and the stereotypes that are currently being propagated through it to paint black people as dangerous, as inherently in need of being controlled. If the culture and if your music isn't not striking out against that aspect of what is being propagated by corporations, then it's not hip-hop activism. It's not using hip-hop to combat those elements within the rap industry. They're doing damage to the culture as a whole and to our people as a whole. Is anybody, y'all following what I'm trying to say right now?
Yes. Yeah.
So my music, and the brother pointed out his CD, I gotta point out mine. My new album, Worldwide, Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, in which you can find the theme song for this particular conference in the Black Autonomy Federation as well, Organize the Hood. That track is on there too. We shot a video for that. I hope y'all check that out. But I also have internationalist themes on that, because what I've grown and learned how to do is make the connection between poor people of color throughout the world. Right? And this is what I believe hip-hop was intended to do. To galvanize and motivate poor people across the world to struggle for their rights, to struggle for that which they are entitled to. You understand what I'm saying? Whether it be our brothers and sisters in Palestine, our brothers and sisters in Kashmir, our brothers and sisters right here in Memphis. We're trying to connect the dots now, and it all does start right here. But if all of you come back tomorrow, what I really hope that you do, we're going to make copies of these available for everybody in the house. You got to come back, though. We're going to make copies of these available for everybody in the house. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'll give a hand for these dynamic brothers again. Yeah, we're gonna go to a question and answer period real quick. And yeah, we're gonna give it maybe about 10 minutes of question and answers, then we're gonna go to lunch. So yeah, let's do this. Brother with his hand up.
My name is Jabril Shabbat. As a revolutionary elder, I don't know a whole lot about hip-hop, or I don't know a lot about rap, one or the other, I come out the era, I guess I listened to Kool Moe Dee, and
How you like me now?
these people, that's why I come into my introduction of this. But I want to know, what is rap and what is hip-hop, and how do we label and class these corporate people that's profiteers off of the rap or hip-hop or whatever?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
First thing I wanted to say is, if you know Kool Moe Dee, you don't need to know anything else. But having said that, there's two aspects of what rap is. One aspect is that it's the musical component of hip-hop culture. Because hip-hop as a culture includes b-boying and b-girling, which people know as breakdancing. It also includes graffiti culture. It also includes knowledge and having fun. These are the ciphers of hip-hop. And DJing, yeah, how can I forget DJing? But But yeah, but the other way of looking at rap is as a genre that was placed on part of the culture to sell it as a product. You know, the reason it was easy to turn something that was a form of creative expression into a form of self-decimation was because it was turned into a product. And the idea with rap music was that you wanted to create something that was perceived as the image of black ghetto culture to white kids in middle America. Because white kids in middle America were going to be the ones that were going to be buying it. You know, when you go to most corporate hip hop shows, the audience there's very few black and brown folks. It's mostly white kids. When you look at who was buying most CDs, you know, most MP3s, it's white kids. You know, black kids ain't got the money. They don't have the disposable income. So basically, what happens with rap is that the perception is that rap is perceived as the most saleable product within hip hop culture. You know, another interesting thing about rap is that when it was decided that you were going to sell this image of black ghetto culture to white kids, Puerto Ricans who grew up in the black hood were actually removed from the equation because they couldn't figure out how to describe or how to convince a white kid from Iowa that some black folks don't look like what they perceive to be black folks. That's why I'm sitting here right now.
One thing I just wanted. One thing I wanted to just add a little bit was this thing as hip hop as a culture, which I'm really and the difference between rap as a product, which I'm really starting to appreciate. My son Leroy was born. He's about 2.5 years old, and from that immediately, I'm bringing him to the gallery, bringing him to this other group called Rise Up. He's getting into it. And these spaces are created in which there's people on the stage rapping, there's people dancing, there's billboards, people doing graffiti, sometimes there's DJs. But it goes to the question of a culture is something which is transmitted over generations. A culture is something which, you know, you take in, you've been passed on, you take pride in, and then you pass it along. Rap is a product that you buy, you know what I'm saying, many times then you buy another one, then you buy another one. The culture is something that you lived. So in the 5E Gallery, we had I can't remember his name right now, but he was a DJ and a B-boy pioneer, and he just talks about how B-boying, it wasn't separate. You know what I'm saying? There were gatherings, there were events, people would come, DJs would go, people would be dancing at the thing, you know what I'm saying, showing off, like, whoa, who's going, you know, what moves are they about to do? You know what I'm saying? In which it was a living culture that it wasn't a separate, now B-boying is a product. They have the B-boy championships, and you can go on YouTube and see, you know, people just, oh, we're just doing B-boying and just doing, it was just an expression that all those things were taking place in the same place. So I think that a lot of times now, part of the symptom is we talk about a hip hop event and then we highlight MCs, you know, and we're not, you know, even us, you know, we're living this 2014 paradigm as opposed to having the whole hip hop live paradigm accessible to us, because many of us, it's not in our time frame and it's not in our, you know, right now experience. So hip hop is definitely a culture, and so it's definitely a lot of the elements, not just, you know, people rapping, that we can definitely tune into, which create a space. You know, somebody mentioned about black music being a family thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had that experience, you know what I'm saying, where you got the kids running around while the people are rapping. Mm-hmm. Kids might look at the dancing and they, you know, somebody might be rapping, but they, ooh, you know, and it's, different people have different strengths. Not everybody wants to sit and write and is attracted to those words. You know what I'm saying? The dancing might get a whole different group of people that wouldn't have come. You know, the graffiti might get a whole nother group of people. And that helped us to be a more powerful and more vibrant culture.
First of all, I would like to say, man, I appreciate you and I thank you for giving up your time and your effort to come down to little old Memphis, Tennessee. And be with us. I'm a Yale keep along with the group called Brothers Keeper. We've been on the ground down here in the city of Memphis for a number of years. And sometimes it's best when someone else comes from out of town and said the same thing that you've been saying for the past 10, 15 years. The brother said that our African insurrection music, our music that teaches the history and the heritage, is much needed in our community. But a lot of us don't hear that. A lot of us think that when you're saying that it's time for revolution, that don't mean us. That means them over there. But that means us right here in Memphis, Tennessee. You know? And sometimes we don't want to hear that. You get labeled as being crazy. You get labeled as being off on some kind of tangent, or you done bought into some other kind of game. But when somebody else comes in and they reaffirm what you've been saying, that should speak to the minds and hearts of everybody in here. That when Brothers Keeper was saying this in 2000, y'all wasn't feeling it then, you know what I'm saying? But now Brother Rico back here in 2014 and telling y'all the same thing that Brothers Keeper was telling y'all. It's time for revolution. You know? Let's get that together.
Right on, bro. Yes, sir. Right on. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just want to know if you guys ever read that article about the secret meeting that changed hip hop, and they call it a conspiracy, but I don't think it is, because it's that's exactly what happened. After NWA, that's when it started glorifying that violence. So what do you guys think about that?
I have read the article. Have you read the article, brother? Have you?
I haven't yet.
Okay, I read the article, and I well, one thing about when it comes to articles, I always got to, question the source, check on the source. I believe the source of that article is anonymous. There is no source given. The person who said it, who claims to have wrote it, wants to remain anonymous. But you know what? Whether that article is legitimate or not, I don't even think it's relevant. What we know is what happened.
Right.
And what happened was in the late 80s, early 90s, this type of rap known as gangster rap took off, and the cultural acts that were out at that time that weren't doing well, Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, KRS-One, X-Clan, the record companies turned their back on them, cut them off, stopped marketing them, stopped promoting them, stopped backing their tours, right? And this we know. So whether or not there's a secret meeting, one meeting in particular, where all of this was decided, I don't even think is really relevant. We don't even need to know if that meeting took place. What we know is that process occurred. What we know is that process happened, right? And so therefore it had to be calculated. It had to be premeditated, because it certainly played out in a methodical way, right? My personal experience in my personal life, being from Virginia, reflects, and I spoke on this on the radio last week, on the Black Autonomy Federation Radio, every Saturday night on the Black Talk Radio Network at 8 p.m., right? We talked about this last week. My personal experience was very similar to hip-hop's transition, almost from the very beginning, right? Because I was into X-Clan and Poor Righteous Teachers and Public Enemy, KRS-One, Kool Moe Dee. Those were I love those guys. Those were the people that I looked up to, listened to that music all the time when I was coming up. And then when the corporation started pushing something else, my personal behavior it reflected that fact. I started acting that way. I'm from Virginia, right? So being from Virginia, people cannot tell me that hip-hop doesn't or cannot have a negative impact on the behavior of young people. It all starts in the home, and if you read it, so therefore these images and this music, you can't blame hip-hop for violence. People can't tell me that, because I know how it affected me. You understand what I'm saying? And I know if it affected me in Virginia that way, it may have affected some youth in Arkansas that way. It may have affected some youth in South Carolina that way. And other states and areas of America where the music wasn't at that time being created a lot, and it certainly wasn't being promoted at all. Back then, if you wasn't from New York or Los Angeles, you wasn't even in the industry. Yeah. Right? And so that happened all throughout the country. When NWA and gangster rap came out and the movie Colors came out and all that, next thing you know, you got gangs that were primarily based in LA all over America. Mm-hmm. You cannot tell me the mainstream media didn't have a lot to do with that. Everything to do with that. I know they did in Virginia, because I lived it. We wasn't into none of that until the corporations started pushing it. Go to Virginia now. Everybody talking that. Everybody wants to be like LA was in the 60s and 70s. And you'll be like, what the hell are y'all doing that here for? Why? Why? Coming up for trying to find a reason to kill each other. Ain't got no reason whatsoever, so therefore the corporation's gonna give you one. Now you go through Virginia and everybody they got a reason to kill each other. For some sex and for some games that they had heard nothing about 20 years ago. You understand what I'm saying? Absolutely corporations had something to do with that. Absolutely corporations had something to do with that. Which goes back to my point about this so-called hip-hop ed and how that is not hip-hop activism for the sake of black social change. What I know is that the ivory tower is not going to give to poor people that which will empower them, because if it does, we will tear that shit down.
Frankenstein.
Right? So therefore, the so-called hip-hop education there's now being taught, one second, brother.
No, I'm just
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is now being taught and being propagated and promoted is coming out of Harvard University. Harvard University. They have fellowships now for hip-hop education. You think that that is the type of education that black people need to do something to change their condition? These are institutions that was built on the backs of slaves and they never gave reparations.
That's right.
So how they gonna give you the type of political education that would make you demand the reparations that should be forthcoming? Hey, that's not happening. That's not happening. That's not happening. So this is revolutionary hip hop right here. This is real hip hop right here. This is what KRS-One, Public Enemy, Kool Moe Dee, X-Clan, Wise Intelligence talked about back then. This is hip hop activism coming full circle.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank y'all. Once again, I want to thank y'all. You go ahead and answer. Yeah.
For those who don't know, there was an article that's been making the rounds of what George Bush called the internets. Basically, it was saying that there was a secret meeting that these folks got together and decided how they were going to subvert hip hop. We were having a discussion yesterday about things like conspiracy theories, you know, and the mothership coming down, and the Illuminati, and shapeshifters, and all this other stuff. And we came to the conclusion that whether or not those things are true, at the end of the day, they're a distraction. And as it relates to rap music specifically, we don't need a secret meeting, and we don't need a conspiracy theory when we're getting into bed with the corporations on the daily. And so, you know, it's interesting because, you know, Brother Biko mentioned, you know, Public Enemy and KRS-One and X-Clan and Poor Righteous Teachers and and NWA and all these other folks. But one of the things that those folks do actually have in common is that they all chose to go back to the plantation. None of them really chose to create their own. None of them really chose to create a real autonomous infrastructure for hip-hop culture. So it was very easy for the corporations to say, you know what, we're going to subvert you guys. Because you guys are in bed with us. Because you guys want what we're giving you, which is a few crumbs. But it's more crumbs than the brothers on the street got. You know, so the point simply being that, you know, there's no need for conspiracy theories when we're implicit in our own destruction.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, there was a brother back there that wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'm Brother Okai Ajambo, and I love everything you brothers are talking about. And I think our generation, meaning us, now, you guys, myself, have the information because the elders have passed it on. It's our time right now for us to accept more responsibility in the revolution.
Yes, sir.
You know, because we have to not only continue to pass on the information that the elders gave us, but we also have to do like my brother here with Brothers Keeper and start developing applications to internalize what we need to do now to build that infrastructure. Because if we learn from our history, you know, we talked about, I just want to say Public Enemy, because, you know, they were rapping about consciousness. But see, we forgot that before then we had Gil Scott Heron, the last poet, and they did the same thing to us then. So our generation have to learn from these experiences and start developing a plan, a flow chart for these brothers now that's coming up to be able to develop that infrastructure so they can carry it on with perpetual motion. So that when we're dead and gone, it continues to grow. It continues to move on with the movement. So I'm looking at what you guys are doing. Can you tell me how that I can help understand what flow chart, what application that you guys have started developing, because I know you guys are doing it, so that we can carry this momentum on and stop talking about what happened in the past, because that information is going to be carried on. We got that responsibility. Now our responsibility is to make that application so that we can pass it on and give the next generation some more responsibility with passing on the information, with teaching the application, and then developing that in the next level of the perpetual motion. So what application do we have in place that we can pass on here in Memphis? You guys travel on and keep it going, and so that we'll know what we need to do to make it work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, your question also made a lot of important points, you see, and which is one of the reasons why I am here, right? To learn the application process, see? Because later on today, we're going to be given some tools to become better organizers in the communities from which we're from, right? So that's why I'm here, and that's what I'm looking forward to learning more about personally here throughout the rest of today. I think my hope is that the brothers and sisters are going to cover much of that while we're here today. Because I see that question as basically the objective of this conference. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to say, I want to thank y'all once again. It's like things I've been hearing is the hip hop education, rappers and choices. Like the brother touched from Detroit about the rappers knowing better, but doing something to get in and fit in so they can make their money. Now, I want to ask y'all this as artists, as also as activists, what are your thoughts about Lil Wayne's lyric from last year about the Emmett Till thing? Because I'm thinking like maybe it's a blessing in disguise, because I meet folks in their 40s and 50s as black people that never heard of Emmett Till. You know, but Lil Wayne, the following he has, by him saying that, maybe it turns some folks on to that history. But yeah, he had a backlash. I mean, what if he wanted to come over to that cause, but yet the folks who represent the guard saying, no, we don't want you. And we can't have a revolution without intergenerational cooperation. So I want to get y'all response to that.
Your question is, you want to know specifically about that incident.
Right, how y'all feel about that, what Lil Wayne did in the reaction to that.
All right. If I was to ever recite a lyric like that, my hope would be the brother Lorenzo, brother Ross, smack his daylight out of me. For real. Seriously. If you want to know the answer to my personal answer to that question, if I was to recite a lyric like that, these brothers supposed to smack me behind that. All right? Because we all know what Emmett Till meant to us and meant to the civil rights movement in the 1960s. You understand what I'm saying? His memory will last forever. And we all know that his death galvanized the movement in many regards and brought so much needed attention upon the lynching and the brutalization that black people were suffering from throughout the South. That's just the one that made the news.
Right.
Right? Like nowadays, we would say that's the one that made the news. Back then, it was the one that made Jet Magazine. That's right. But it was going on the regular.
Right.
It was going on back then on the regular. It's going on nowadays on the regular. So therefore, you don't take an icon, and let's remember, he was a child when his life was lost. And use his life and the torture that he suffered as a punchline and for record sales. You understand what I'm saying? So, personally, I believe he was dead wrong for that. But I'm not surprised that he made that mistake, because that just simply points toward maybe his lack of a full understanding and appreciation for what that young man, what that child's life meant to the movement. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not like everyone makes mistakes. Well, everyone may sometimes say some things that they regret or wish they could take back. So I don't say that makes Lil Wayne a bad person, or that, you know, saying that something about him that is inherently evil. I don't attack him as an individual. You understand what I'm saying? He's simply reflecting the mentality that's prevalent throughout the youth and black communities throughout the country. He's a reflection of the mentality that's prevalent, right? The reactionary mentality. Thus, the necessity of a conference such as this. Let's organize the hood. Hip-hop activist community organizing conference. Another reason why we're here, because artists such as that are reciting lyrics such as that. Right? So, hey man, I mean, you know, I used to say some dumb things too. And I still do at times. I say some things that maybe I regret. Right? But when I was a little bit more reactionary than I am today, I said some things I certainly wish I would have never said. Right? So, I mean, you know, I understand where that's coming from, and I believe it came from basically a lack of a full appreciation as to what Emmett Till meant to the civil rights movement. Okay. But I believe out of that Lil Wayne probably learned a personal lesson about that historical incident and about the life of that young man and about what he meant to black people. So for him, it might have been for the good. For him, it might have turned out for the better. His personal political education may have been enhanced. I don't dwell on that too much.
The last two questions kind of overlap a little bit for me. About the flow chart, I think definitely would encourage y'all should make your own flow chart for Memphis and see what is the flow chart. The components I would say would be young people, artists, and activist organizers, and see what your own flow chart will be here. Just to share one concrete practice in Detroit for a while, and then one of the organizations that did it, they actually, very complicated, we had some political disagreements, so they pulled the funding and stopped this initiative, but for a long while we had a monthly gathering called Food Justice Fridays. And it was done to raise awareness about issues of food, around issues of justice to access to food, the whole thing about liquor stores on every corner, the lack of grocery stores, lack of difficulty in even knowing what is healthy food in our community to even have a choice of eating, you know, some healthy food. So we had, it was heavy on the entertainment, you know what I'm saying? We had catering that had some sort of, not like super vegetarian healthy, but it was strategized like what kind of healthy food would people actually eat, in which it would be something people would want, as well as maybe healthier than what you would normally just get on a dollar menu or on a regular everyday thing. Open mic, entertainment, and each month would have a certain theme or a certain message or a certain way that justice would be brought into it. So that was one type of engagement that we created, you know what I'm saying, to bring together the hip hop, to bring together the young people, to bring together the activists, and get the messages into the people in a way that people were feeling, people were having a good time, people were vibing with. And so I would, it definitely could be interest for anybody if we could come up with an arrangement where, you know, one or two of us could help you to come up with your own flow chart on what are the things that you could bring together, you know what I'm saying, to get that synergy, to really hit it and do something. And then, which relates to my thing on Lil Wayne, I'm not gonna answer that directly, but what I will say is, for me, if we're revolutionaries, and to me revolutionary is creating a system for self-determination in which you depend on your own energies, then again, I think we need to do that with our culture also. And I notice people talk about Lil Wayne, or they talk about Django. What's the significance of that? Or Beyonce, how significant was that? People don't spend the intellectual energy, you know what I'm saying, on a Biko, on a Will C. At most they like it, or they share it. But they not writing articles about it and analyzing about it. And if this is revolution, we need to make our own culture the most significant thing. So we spending all the energy on Lil Wayne and arguing and saying this and saying that. You know what I'm saying? But we not spending that cultural energy, that intellectual energy. We not treating these things that we say are revolutionary, these cultural products, we don't really believe in our own cultural products the same way we believe in these corporate cultural products. You know what I'm saying? We need to, if we gonna make Lil Wayne and Django and 12 Years a Slave and whatever else, we gonna make these corporate products important and groundbreaking and my life will never be the same, or even take the time to argue with the people. No, that's this and that's that. We spending all this time arguing about the corporate product and how significant it is or isn't, but we not giving that energy to these quote-unquote revolutionary projects. That's on us too.
Yeah.
And we tied into that, you know what I'm saying? We tied into that system in that way because we really don't believe in our revolutionary culture.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, let me just address the Little Wayne question. Little Wayne is very important. I think it's not so much a question of Little Wayne or what Little Wayne said or what Little Wayne says. It's more of a question of who is putting millions of dollars into promoting Little Wayne and what Little Wayne said. And if you know, if we don't know who Emmett Till is and we're relying on Sony Records to teach us about Emmett Till, then we are in trouble.
The sister.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate all the brothers and sisters that come to Memphis. My name is Sister Ayadele. I just want to reiterate to you that there are movements, there are liberation movements. What you are promoting as far as putting messages into the music is exactly what the elders have called on, because this is our time. We have called on the artists. Everything you do should be at the service of the race. Or send it to the trash can of history, according to John R. Clark. What we're trying to do now, as women coming into the struggle, we are asking the hip-hop, any community, respect God, respect us, don't abuse our children, because we're coming for you.
Yes, ma'am.
We are coming, we're going to be here in this struggle because it's a liberation movement. We are tying our struggle into all African people around this globe. We start at home, we spread abroad, we turn into our communities, we redevelop them, we bring the culture back, the discipline back, and particularly educating and uplifting, because we want the gangs, we're telling the gangs, if you are not at the service of the elders, the women, and the children, you are an enemy to your people. Yes, you are. You are
When I was wrong with us, I'm a photographer and historian. I appreciate the young men coming, but I wanted to ask, bring up a lot of good points, and there's a lot of issues facing our community. I wanted to ask the question about, is there a recommended list that is, or a top 20 list or a national list? I don't know, it may not be a local list, or recommended music, that you could that we recommend, like what you have. Is there a list that's already provided? And then in addition to that, is there one? And also, are you all part, have you all been in a relationship with Bob Law? Is he part of the movement, or is he still active in New York providing leadership?
Bob Law is not really doing much work in terms of the hip hop community, but he's still active, and he's still doing a lot of good work, important work. I don't think there's a recommended list for what folks should be listening to. There should be one, but I think that's something we have to create. But then the issue becomes how do we get that list out to people in such a way where they're interested in it? And realistically, we're up against a giant. We're in the entrails of the monster. And our weapon is David Sling. And I think that's what we're up against here. Like, how do we get an alternative message? Getting back to Little Wayne, because Little Wayne is very important. There's an old saying in the music business, which is, any publicity is good publicity. And that's what the corporations ride on. The corporations don't really give a shit what Little Wayne is saying, as long as it's selling. So if you know, it's our job to get an alternative out in the streets. You know, I appreciate things like Black autonomy, because the idea is like, you know, we're not even gonna think about this whole, you know, music industrial complex and this, you know, this behemoth, you know, and this whole structure and the white man's world. We're gonna live outside of it. We're gonna create autonomous communities all over the United States, you know, outside the United States. And those communities will have their lists. Those communities will have their alternative ways of teaching each other. You know, when I was in LA recently, you know, Chicano folks were creating freedom schools in their homes. And that's how they were teaching their kids. You know, and, you know, one of the things in East Harlem, which we were trying to do was chase gentrifiers out of the neighborhood. And, you know, it was kind of interesting because people were protesting, they were out in the streets, yeah, get them out of here, get them out of here. But when you go up to them and say, well, you know, realistically, if you really want them out of here, you need to grab a gun and say, get the fuck out of here, then there's something wrong with you. But I really do believe that if we really do believe as a people that we are being destroyed, and we are, then we have to look at it as if we are at war. And I don't think we look at it that way sufficiently. You know, I was talking to a sister recently because, you know, she was like, oh, what are you trying to do with your hip hop? And I was like, oh, yo, you know, I'm jumpstarting the revolution. Yeah. Because, you know, it hasn't been in effect. And she said to me, well, don't you think that it's already been in effect, but we're just not sufficiently organized and armed? So I was speechless. I'm an MC. I'm not supposed to be speechless, but I was. And yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, but, you know, I'm trying.
One last question. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just came in.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
right here that I really enjoyed. 60 seconds I've been here. But as he said, we as a people, we're going to have to come together as one group, not a divided group, but as one group. Like Marvin Gaye said in one of his OCDs that I played constantly, what's going on? That's right. He talked about the children. He talked about everything. He almost, to me, saw into the future. This future now that we're in, that that you young people are in, he saw this coming. And he wanted to know then, what's going on? What are we going to do about this?
Yes.
But as long as we buy this music that breaks our women's down, our children down, talks about drugs, making money the easy way instead of using your brain. Now, it's one thing, they can't control our brain. But they control us through a lot of things. They control us through education. They tell us what to learn and what not to learn. They control us through religion. It's 9 principles that they are doing. But we must come together as one. Even though our races, in a sense, are genociding our own races. We're genociding us. And this is what they want us to do. They don't want, if you genocide enough, it's not going to be no more black babies. Because this is their intent. Not all, but it's lots of intent out there. And we're going to have to come together as peoples, as one group, united. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. There's no ifs and ands about that. And I wish I could just think of a reason of things of how we can come together. Because what you young people are saying is really touching the few seconds I've been here. Because I have granddaughters that listen to foul butt music, and they like it.
Right.
How can you like something when you're being degraded? How can you play this crap? And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to respond to that. I think the start for us coming back together is to start thinking as a family and thinking as an autonomous family that doesn't exist within this cipher that's destroying us. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to destroy capitalism because capitalism is eating us alive. I don't think we're committing self-genocide I think there is, there's larger forces, and part of those forces is this whole, what Tupac called white man's world. And I think we have to figure out how to get beyond that. And I think, your daughters are just buying what's being force-fed to them with millions and millions of dollars. It's hard to get an alternative idea or message or vision across when you're up against somebody who's a billionaire. And it's hard to criticize, Jay-Z or Kanye or anybody else. So I was speechless, and I'm an MC. I'm not supposed to be speechless, but I was. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm trying.
One last question. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just came in.
Yes, ma'am. I know.
But I hear that I really enjoyed because I've been here. But as he said, we as a people, we're going to have to come together as one group, not a divided group, but as one group. Like Marvin Gaye said in one of his OCDs that I play tons of what's going on. That's right. He talked about the children. He talked about everything. He almost, to me, saw into the future. This future now that we're in, that I was in, that you young people are in, he saw this coming. And he wanted to know then, what's going on? What are we going to do about this? Yes. But as long as we buy this music that breaks our women's down, our children down, talks about drugs, making money the easy way instead of using your brain. Now, it's one thing, they can control our brain. But they control us through a lot of things. They control us through education. They tell us what to learn and what not to learn. They control us through religion. It's 9 principles that they are doing. But we must come together as one. Even though our races, in a sense, are genociding our own races. We're genociding us. And this is what they want us to do. They don't want, if you genocide enough, it's not going to be no more black babies. Because this is their intent. Not all, but it's a lot of intent out there. And we're going to have to come together as people, as one group, united. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. There's no ifs and ands about that. And I wish I could just think of reason of things of how we can come together. Because what you young people are saying is really touching me a few seconds after that. Because I have granddaughters that listen to foul butt music and they like it.
Right.
How can you like something when you're being degraded? How can you play this crap? That's all.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We said you gotta go.
Real quick, I just wanted to respond to that. I think the start for us coming back together is to start thinking as a family and thinking as an autonomous family that doesn't exist within this cipher that's destroying us. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to destroy capitalism because capitalism is eating us alive. I don't think we're committing self-genocide. I think there is, there's larger forces, and part of those forces is this whole, what Tupac called the white man's world. And I think we have to figure out how to get beyond that. And I think, your daughters are just buying what's being force-fed to them with millions and millions of dollars. It's hard to get an alternative idea or message or vision across when you're up against somebody who's a billionaire. And it's hard to criticize, Jay-Z or Kanye or anybody else when, they're just trying to figure out how to get over in a society that has taught us that it's all about the hustle, it's all about the grind, it's all about getting over.
I want to add one more. I'm sorry. I'm gonna add one more thing if I may. The thing is this: not only are these corporations profiting from the present state of rap music, are profiting from the messages that are present in the rap industry, but the messages that are prevalent nowadays throughout the rap industry, those messages which degrade black women, those messages which encourage us to deal drugs, those messages which seek to motivate us to kill one another. these messages are not just profitable for these corporations. This is also what they see us as and what they want us to do.
Yes.
So they wouldn't give a damn if they didn't make a dollar
That's right.
from the degradation of black women. They want us to perpetuate a culture that degrades black women. Why? Because they've always degraded black women.
Yes.
Right? These corporations and the people who run them during yesteryear, they may have not been called Sony Music. They may have been called Sony Tennessee Plantation with 300-400 acres, right? And about 500 African women being held captive as slaves, right? So this is just a continuation of what black women and of what black people have always endured here in America, right? So the images and the music that is being propagated nowadays is a continuation of those stereotypes that they have always put upon us. And they want the world to always see us that way. So they continue to justify to the world that we deserve to be brutalized and victimized. Right? Thank you.
Finish at one.
No doubt. Definitely an appreciation and honor of everybody allowing me to be on this panel. One thing that I'll say specifically, one power area that we have in our community to look at is the young adults, the young men, the young women who are, I would say, like 15 to early 20-ish, really looking at like this whole thing about being cool. Really look at the power of our people to innovate and mobilize each other. In Detroit, we have these young people, they're looking for stuff. Like you mentioned, the concrete things of our community. If our organizing can start to provide some concrete things where these young people, if they ain't got a job, where our organizing is gonna welcome them in, and maybe we ain't gonna pay all that, but we gonna give them a little something.
Yes.
The coolness and you mentioned Bunchy having the 5,000 youth. Once people start vibing and seeing that, yo, this thing is really about something, they gonna be there for your little babies to see. You know what I'm saying? Those 15, those 16, those 17, those 20-year-old, once we give them something where we can actually answer some questions that they have in their lives, and we show them that this corporate stuff ain't feeding you. This ain't giving you. Right now they think that this is giving them something. And once we show them a little something, and we can give them a little something, they're gonna shine so much that, you know, that's what the Panthers did. That's what these movements did, was these powerful, young, vibrant, soulful people, and the rest of the community organized around it. Like, you know what, we got you, young folks. So once we can give them a little something, these babies gonna come through, and we're gonna love it.
No doubt. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we're going to break for lunch. We'll be back here about 1:30. And, you know, we do have some food for, you know, for just about, I guess, maybe most people here, hopefully. Because I eat a lot. I want you guys to give a round of hand again for these brothers. They're going to be performing here tomorrow at 3. And come hear their performances, because it's going to be fire. It's going to be some fire. And when we get back from lunch, we're going to go to the second half of the program. But give another hand for these brothers for coming. Glad y'all came.
Yes, sir.